Hey guys, today I'm showing you the video of me making this cookie desk behind me. I'm going to do a voiceover to kind of point out some mistakes I made and things I learned along the way, so in case you want to make one for yourself, you learn from my mistakes. Thank you. Background story on the frame of this desk. It came from an old desk that my father had disassembled around 20 years ago. I held on to the wood for the longest time, not knowing what to do with it. Then I watched a video from Jimmy DeResta making something similar, so I got inspired to try and make a desk for my kids. I recently got a used planer and joiner and used them for the first time to mill the oak. It had a bunch of nail and screw holes that I had to fill, and I used just a mix of sawdust and wood glue to fill the holes. I made a basic frame and left around ½ inch space from the outside edge to the top of the cookie slices. Then I used caulk around the edges so the epoxy wouldn't leak. I got a few limbs from a coworker that I had to debark, and I also helped my mom cut a bunch of overgrown bushes from her backyard, and I used some of the smaller branches for the slices as well. I started cutting the wood slices on my 12-inch radial arm saw, but I found that with the smaller pieces it was not very safe to do that, so I switched to the table saw. But in the future, I think what I need to do is make a zero clearance plate, and that will help alleviate some of the issues I had. So we started by gluing the wood pieces to the desk just so they wouldn't float around when pouring the epoxy, and that worked well. I mean, even though gluing end grain is really not the best thing to do, I mean, it held the slices enough that they didn't shift around at all. So it worked for what we needed it to. This took pretty much most of the day for us to do this entire desk. I mean, it was a lot of little pieces, and the kids helped, and they were really good at helping me out here, so they got a lot done. And the more hands the better at this point, because I mean, it took most of the afternoon to do this. Here we are signing the final piece. We always kind of leave a signature on the last piece here. So I just realized that the day that we signed the last piece, which is September 23rd, is my father's birthday. So it's funny how that worked out. I hope I made him proud. So with the cookies, my intention was to pour the epoxy even with the cookie slices, because I was afraid that if I were to cover the slices with epoxy, that I would get a lot of air bubbles and I would use a lot of epoxy. So I decided to kind of leave the slices even with the top of the desk. And in hindsight, I should have cut them shorter so it leaves like at least an 1/8 of an inch gap in between the slices and the top of the desk. That way the top will be nothing but epoxy. But my fear was that I would get too many air bubbles and whatnot, but in the end, if I were to do it again, that's what I would do. cover them completely with at least an 1/8 inch of epoxy. I mean, it came out okay, but if I were to do it again, I definitely would do that. And that's one of the mistakes that I made, because I didn't get like the results that I was looking for. So one of the things I thought of doing was to kind of seal the slices so they wouldn't suck up a lot of the epoxy when I poured them. So I sealed them with 1 coat of Armor Seal before applying the first coat of Epoxy. And I don't show this in the video, but after all the precautions, I did have a slight leak coming through, and I have no idea where it came from. Even though I sealed it with silicone, it still had a little bit of a drip, so I had to kind of clean that mess up. But we got through it, and you know, it kind of worked itself out. So now I'm just pouring. I got a couple of like little gaps in between the slices where the epoxy settled, so I'm pouring a second coat on top of the other one. And I was very impatient in doing this. I wanted to be over and done with the desk, because I mean, winter was around the corner, and I didn't want to be outside in the garage working in the cold, so I was kind of in a rush. And it's one of the other lessons I learned is you got to be patient when dealing with epoxy. You got to let it cure fully before working it. So I was impatient, and I kind of started sanding before it completely cured, and I started getting like this cloudy film on the epoxy. But I mean, in the long run, I think it's okay, but just have to be patient with it, I guess. I use Armor Seal, and I am very happy with how it comes out. I've used it on a couple of different projects, and I like the way it looks, and it's a durable finish because it has a polyurethane as well. So you kind of have to, you know, sand in between coats, and I'm really happy with the results with Armor Seal. Now this is the first time that I've ever made drawers, and I think they came out okay. I mean, a few things that I would change here and there, but otherwise, you know, I think they look pretty good for an amateur. And I bought these hairpin legs from eBay seller online. They came out okay. They were kind of a custom size, so that's why I had to have them custom made, but I think they look okay on the desk. Just let me know. I mean, I think they look fine. Leave a comment if you think the desk would look better with another set of legs or something else. I was happy with how it came out. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I had a fun time making this desk. Like I said, I learned a couple of things along the way. One is to be patient, kind of let the epoxy cure, and the other mistake I made was to leave the epoxy even with the cookie slices. If I were to do it again, I would cover them completely with epoxy, maybe like 1/8 of an inch or so with epoxy, just to kind of, you know, make sure everything is covered. But I mean, the kids are happy with it, and for now I'm gonna leave it as is, but in the future, I don't know, we'll see what happens, I guess. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please stay tuned. I'll have another one here pretty soon.